Welcome back to our Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a truly harrowing, profound piece of literature, Section 5 of Elie Wiesel's Night. We're looking at Eliezer's time at the Buna concentration camp, right as the relatively milder summer plunges into a brutal winter. It's a pivotal chapter, guys. We're charting a terrifying descent into a total spiritual and physical void, where human endurance, faith, and the deep love between a father and son are pushed to the absolute brink. Listen to this line for a second. My eyes had opened, and I was alone, terribly alone, in a world without God, without man. Wow. That haunting realization perfectly captures the internal struggle we're examining today. Think about the profound isolation there. He's literally surrounded by tens of thousands of suffering people, yet he's never felt more alone. The young, mystic boy who used to weep when he prayed, he's gone. Completely replaced by a young man confronting a terrifying, empty silence.
Section 1. The Void of Faith.
Okay, let's dive into this. It's the eve of Rosh Hashanah, and tens of thousands of inmates are gathered in the apple plots. They're surrounded by electrified barbed wire, literally bending like trees in a storm to bless God. But inside Eliezer's mind, it's a battleground. He's not feeling reverence, he's feeling conscious, angry rebellion. He's wondering, why on earth should I bless a God who allows 6 crematoria to run day and night? And then comes Yom Kippur, and the agonizing debate over whether to fast. I mean, to fast in a death camp could mean a rapid death. Yet some argue they have to do it, to show God they can still sing his praises while locked in hell. But Eliezer? He chooses not to fast. Partly to obey his dad, sure, but mainly, it's a symbol of protest against God's absolute silence. He literally swallows his ration of soup as an act of open defiance. And that act of swallowing the soup brings us to a defining moment. He nibbles on his crust of bread, and as he says, "Deep inside me, I felt a great void opening." You see, that wasn't just his physical hunger being briefly satisfied. No, that was the exact moment his previous, deeply held mystic faith just evaporated, leaving behind this profound, hollow emptiness in its wake. Section 2. The Race for Survival. Soon, a dreaded word starts circulating through the camp: selection. This is a clinical, absolutely horrifying process where SS doctors, including the infamous Dr. Mengele, examine the inmates. They're looking for the absolute frailest among them, the ones they call the Musulman. If an SS doctor writes your number down, you are judged, quote, good for the crematorium. It is the ultimate, institutionalized devaluation of human life. Before the selection, the inmates get some chilling advice from their Bloco Eldestate on how to survive. He tells them, undress completely. Move your limbs around to get some color into your skin. Run straight ahead as if the devil himself is at your heels. Don't look at the SS. And then, the final completely impossible command: don't be afraid. Can you imagine? The absolute terror underlying those simple clinical steps is mind-boggling. Your entire existence hinges on a momentary sprint while you're completely naked and vulnerable. Just imagine the frantic panic in Eliezer's mind as it's finally his turn to run past Dr. Mengele. His head is just spinning with these terrifying thoughts. You are too skinny. You are too weak. You are good for the ovens. So he runs. He runs without looking back, his heart pounding out of his chest, desperately trying to prove his physical worth, mask his starvation, and outrun the pen of the SS doctor. Section 3. A Heartbreaking Inheritance. Let's move forward and see how this builds, because surviving that initial selection, that's really only half the battle. A few days pass and a second, decisive selection is announced. The inmates whose numbers were taken are told to stay in the camp instead of heading out to work. And amidst all this chaos, Eliezer's father runs up to him, totally out of breath. He's just discovered his number was recorded without him even noticing. They literally only have moments. The work detail is about to march out, and they both truly believe this is their final rushed goodbye. Time is running out, and his father frantically tries to pass on his last remaining worldly possessions. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer, heartbreaking tragedy of their situation. The inheritance, a knife, and a spoon. Just think about that for a second. A father's entire legacy, his life's accumulation, has been reduced by this brutal system to a piece of silverware and a blade. Eliezer refuses to take it, sobbing, insisting his dad will still need them. It's a moment of immense love, but also utter despair. A stark, painful reminder of everything the camp has stripped away from them. Section 4. The Tyranny of the Bell. Now, there is a fascinating, stark contrast at play in the camp environment. On one hand, you have the bell. The bell regulated literally everything. It barked orders and the inmates executed them blindly. Eliezer talks about how much he hated that bell. It was the ultimate symbol of dehumanization and the complete loss of agency. But on the other hand, you have running. Throughout this chapter, running is the physical manifestation of survival. It's frantic. It pushes human endurance to its absolute breaking point. But it is the only way to defy the system and beat the selection. So you have the mechanical, unfeeling ring of the bell dictating death, standing in constant opposition to the desperate, fiercely human act of running to preserve life. And we see exactly what happens when that human endurance finally gives out. Look at the tragic case of Akiba Drumer. He loses his faith in God, and the very moment that inner fire is extinguished, he loses his will to fight entirely. He essentially surrenders to the bell and the selection, literally offering his neck to the executioner. He asked his friends to say Kaddish for him in 3 days. But here's the really crushing part. The system is so brutal, the work so exhausting, that 3 days later, his friends simply forget. It's devastating proof of how this environment completely erodes human memory and obligation.
Section 5. Marching into the dock.
As we move into the final sequence of the chapter, the physical environment itself turns into an enemy. Winter arrives, and the cold is just unbearable. Eliezer's right foot swells up from the freezing conditions, and he's forced to go to the infirmary for an operation. And here, we actually see a strange, temporary respite. He gets a bed with white sheets, something he had literally forgotten even existed. Plus, he encounters a Jewish doctor who operates on him without anesthesia, but does it with immense kindness and reassurance. It's this brief, startling flash of humanity right in the middle of all the horror. But the psychological trauma of the camp, it's inescapable. In the bed right next to Eliezer is a faceless neighbor suffering from dysentery. As rumors start swirling about the approaching Red Army, this neighbor delivers one of the most chilling lines in the entire book. He says, "I have more faith in Hitler than in anyone else. He alone has kept his promises to the Jewish people." Let that sink in. It shows exactly how the camp twists faith into these dark, cynical realities. The only promise they see being fulfilled is the promise of their own destruction. Now a terrifying, inevitable ticking clock begins as the Red Army gets closer. At 2 p.m., heavy snow starts falling on the camp. By 4 p.m., the shattered Blackelte announces an imminent evacuation. They're going to be moved into deepest Germany. At 6 p.m., that hated bell rings like a death knell. And by nightfall, the camp gates open into the darkness. Panic sets in, and the camp just becomes this frantic hive of activity. With the evacuation ordered, Eliezer and his father face a truly agonizing choice. The sick in the infirmary are told they won't be evacuated, but that faceless neighbor warns Eliezer they'll surely be finished off, or the whole camp will be blown up. Eliezer could stay in the bed, and his father could probably sneak in as a patient or a medic, but driven entirely by love and this terrifying, overwhelming fear of separation, Eliezer makes his choice. He abandons the safety of the infirmary bed. With a bleeding, unhealed foot, he joins his father. They march out into the blinding snow, dressed in layers of mismatched clothes, looking like, as the text heartbreakingly puts it, poor clowns. So the crucial point here is the devastating post-war discovery Eliezer shares with us. The tragic irony is that those who remained in the infirmary, they were, quite simply, liberated by the Russian army just 2 days after the evacuation. Eliezer and his father chose to march into the freezing darkness of the Death March, completely unknowingly walking away from their own imminent freedom. It is a cruel, lingering irony that just haunts the rest of the narrative.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a provocative question to think about. What remains of our humanity when institutional safety, faith, and physical comforts are completely stripped away? I mean, in Section 5 of Night, we see faith absolutely shatter, and we see bodies fail under the brutal tyranny of the bell and the selection. And yet, we also see a boy refuse a knife and spoon, and a son walk on a bleeding foot into a blizzard, all just to stay by his father's side. Thank you so much for joining me in exploring the immense resilience and the profound tragedy of the human spirit in the face of absolute darkness.